We now live in a generation whereby parents are now putting their responsibilities on children. In a generation whereby pa- parents are no longer taking responsibility of them being called parents. They are now leaving it for children who aren't supposed to become responsible of that duties. We're in a generation whereby children are becoming more depressed than adults. A generation where children are becoming more burdens, full of depression, full of burdens that they at their age wasn't supposed to carry. We're in a generation whereby parents are now forcing their children into marriages that was never intended for them, into something that would cause them their life happiness. We're in a generation whereby parents are now the ones forcing boys' children into fraudulent acts that they were supposed to be the one advising them not to enter. We're in the same generation whereby parents are now giving sight to children where they can make quick money, sites and places where children can put their hands into blood to do some rituals. We're in a generation whereby parents are now celebrating children of 16, 17, 18 years who are now bringing money into the home without even cautioning them. We're in a generation whereby parents knows that a girl child is fornicating, is committing adultery, a girl child is committing an harlot outside, but yet they don't care. We're in a generation whereby parents are now becoming lovers of money even more than their children. A generation whereby parents are no longer taking their duty as parents, but they are taking the duty of money instead of the duty of cautioning the children. We're in a generation whereby children are no longer scared of the parents, not because the parents aren't rude or because the parents aren't supposed to be feared or respected, because the children have now seen that there is no value in the parent. Generation whereby when a child doesn't have money, he's not regarded as a member of the family. A generation whereby parents no longer consider a child who doesn't has money as being important member of the family. We're in a generation whereby parents are now competing children. A generation whereby parents welcome the present in the hands of the kid even before welcoming the children. A generation whereby parents are now competing children outside with children with their own children. A generation whereby children who aren't earning something can't have peace of mind even in their own home. We are in a generation whereby parents are no longer becoming who they are supposed to be, who they are supposed to be, who God has imposed them to be. We're in a generation whereby the poor has no kids and the poor has more kids and the rich has no kid. We are in a generation whereby things are now becoming upside down. A generation whereby value is no longer considered. A kind heart is no longer considered. A gospel background, a Christian home is no longer valued. A generation whereby parent no longer teaches moral, no longer teaches the word of God, no longer takes children to church, no longer tell bedtime story. A generation whereby parents are more focused on earning. Sometimes you ask yourself what has changed, but the truth is that a lot has changed. And you try to figure out how can these things be solved. But the only way that these things can be solved is when the parent comes to the point where they tell themselves that have really, really messed up. We live in a generation where parents are in their home, but yet they are absent. Children in a generation whereby the fathers can't even talk to children, they are always focused on their job. We live in a generation whereby mothers are now even more focused on their business. A generation whereby phone, the internet has taken the place of the children's mind. Children no longer find comfort in their homes, but they find it in social media. That is why you see children becoming something else that they never intend to become. We live in a generation whereby a 2 years old girl is being dressed like an harlot and they called it fashion. A generation whereby a 2 years old boy is being barbed and plait hairstyles and pierced ears and we call that fashion. What has happened? Sometimes we really need to ask ourselves, what has really happened to our generation? This generation really needs revival. And the truth is that nothing would happen if we are not supposed to join hands together to seek the face of God. For only the God that is in heaven can help us. A generation whereby everything is no longer as God's plan, but everything is going to the will of the devil. A generation whereby money devotion is no longer considered, whereby children no longer eat together. A generation whereby parents no longer add value to the lives of the parents of their children. All they know is about to pay school fees and to bring food, and to them that is all. The generation whereby children no longer have connection with their parents. Please, parents out there, this is a wake-up call to you. And even those who are young, this is a wake-up call to us. Do not let our own generation become like the generation of our parents. Let's try to bring God into the picture. For in everything, only God can help us. See, we really need God in this battle. For being a better parent is never really easy. And it is very, very easy to destroy a child's life. Please let our life be what Christ has called us for. That is what being a real parent is.